Well, the section under which Michael was charged is Section 45 of the Summary Courts Act, which is titled Idle and Disorderly Persons. The particular subsection deals with the putting up of placards. According to the facts read to the court by the prosecutor, he was attempting to put up one. They did seize a whole set from him, which is totally wrong because these are not illegal. And we did point out to the court that this activity of postering in this country, as I pointed to the court on the way here this morning, I saw many signs on lampposts, including 2-year-old election posters, signs talking about land for sale, even newspaper signs, Pepsi Cola signs, and so on. So that the problem is that in Trinidad and Tobago in 2009, we do not have the facilities for community groups, for ordinary people to publicize their views or their events. And in that kind of situation, we have this legislation still existing on the books. This legislation, in fact, comes from the period post-emancipation. And one part of the section speaks about idle people and people loitering and so on. So that when the ex-slaves moved into the towns, this was a piece of legislation that was to prevent them from sleeping in buildings which didn't belong to them and so on. So that it's really an archaic piece of legislation. The court discharged Michael under Section 71 of the Summary Courts Act, which means there's no conviction recorded against him. And we really also would like the government and the parliament to consider whether this needs to continue on our statute books, or they have to take the appropriate measure to provide ordinary people with means of being able to advertise their events and their views. There was a small point where the prosecutor, in response to a question from the court, attempted to mention that this happened in the course of the summit, which really is, I think, what is behind this whole issue, because you cannot prevent people from expressing a different view. We are not made to agree with what government or the state says, so that it is our right to express dissenting views, and we need to safeguard that jealously.
Was he at all brutalized by the police in any way of his arrest?
The situation, I would commend the particular officer who was involved. He did his work in, I would imagine, a professional manner, but again, probably with misguided kind of directions, because certainly persons having to advertise boat cruises and fetes all the time, that happens every week in Trinidad and Tobago. And we really can't be running down people and bringing them to court for that kind of thing.
So with this situation, is it safe to say that the public, the general public, is not allowed anymore to put up any signs, whereas with the government and the other political parties to put up any more signage in any part of this country?
Well, the statute is there, ma'am. And it says I can't put up a poster anywhere unless I have the owner's permission. That, like I say, it's archaic law. The realities of Trinidad and Tobago is that is the means available to ordinary people.
So that everybody should be arrested?
Well, no, they should not be arrested. I think the law needs to be reformed.
Thank you so much. Any words, Michael?
Well, I just want to remind people why we were putting up the placards, to advertise our event, but also more so to remind people, that they have a right, to express themselves differently to what the majority or the state believes. Coming out of the Drummit, that we had the Drummit Summit, people saw that we can't disagree with what was being presented, and thankfully not signed by the majority of the leaders, the state leaders attending the summit, because it grossly contradicts to what happens on the ground, what the people experience. The document that was presented to them, pledged sustainable energy use, sustainable use of our environment and human prosperity, but that doesn't happen on the ground. What we're saying is that people experience poverty, unsustainable use of the environment, and right now we have wanton wastage of our energy resources. So, the drummers, the true drummers from the Drummit, are going to continue campaigning. We're going to continue letting people know their rights, letting our leaders know that, the people are not in agreement with the ad hoc use of our resources, of our environment, and of our people. So we just want to say thanks to everybody who was involved, and thanks to people who came out today, thanks to everybody who attended the event, and thanks for all the support and all the support that we got. Thank you.
About the event, people are saying to go for a boycott because of the fact that they went back on their own. How do you feel about that?
Well, this is the first time I'm hearing about that, but we went through the procedures just as any other group went through. We advertised our event, so the owners them knew, or they should have known, what was going on, what was going to be there. We booked the event just like anybody else. We had to pay a user fee, which we did. We paid it up front, and half an hour into the event, the summit, the event, the venue management wanted to withdraw application. That I think we were just treated unfairly. We were just discriminated against because of the content, because of what we were standing up for, because we were saying that we're the people revoking the document that some leaders revoked at the summit as well, and that we were making our own declaration, one that just said we stand for what we believe in. We are saying that this is what happens on the ground, contradictory to what you all are about to sign, and that we're going to continue campaigning for proper rights, proper usage of our resources, and proper treatment of people who have different opinions and who disagree with what the majority is. Well, no, I'm not inclined to be renting that venue anymore, but it's a public space, but for too long people have been discriminated against in different ways, and this is just another way in which people who are different or who have a different view are being discriminated against.
Was there any statements from the head of the committee to you all about the pulling out from using the event?
No, there weren't any statements after the event. They just quietly slipped away.